Elizabeth Johnston officially divorce announcement. When a reality TV wedding happens, we all want to believe it's the beginning of a forever fairy tale. We watch the dress, the tears, the first dance, and we get swept up in the happily ever after. But here at Reality Scoop, we know that what happens after the cameras stop rolling is often a very different story. Elizabeth Johnston and Brice Bolden gave us one of the most heartwarming moments in recent 7 Little Johnstons history. Their November 2025 wedding was the perfect ending to a story that had its fair share of drama. A split, a baby, a reconciliation, and finally, a picture-perfect ceremony right in the field of the family home. It felt like a victory lap for a couple that had truly weathered the storm. We thought we were watching Elizabeth finally get her fairy tale, but hold on, because whispers are starting to surface again. And these whispers suggest that the marriage, the one that just made headlines, is already crumbling. Is it true? Did Elizabeth Johnston officially announce a divorce? And if so, what went so wrong so fast? To understand what might be happening now, we have to look at where this couple has been. Because if you've been following the show, you know that Elizabeth and Brice have been a roller coaster from the very beginning. Their story is a prime example of the complexities of reality TV romance. Elizabeth, the driven and often headstrong daughter of Trent and Amber Johnston, met Brice in 2019, and the sparks were immediate. They lived just 3 houses apart, a classic, almost too perfect to be true meet cute. In true teenager fashion, Brice even asked her to prom during a soccer game. But love in the spotlight is never easy. Their relationship faced a major public rupture in early 2024. It was actually before the wedding and before their daughter, Layton, was born. Let's rewind. In a season 14 preview, fans were shocked when Elizabeth said the words, "So, Brice and I are no longer together." It was a gut punch to viewers who had invested in them as a couple. She went on to explain the breakup in raw, painful detail. She said that living together had made them feel more like roommates than lovers. She said the spark had gone. She said, "I can't do it with somebody who is just okay with being in a fine relationship, being in a mediocre relationship." And just to add fuel to the fire, she scrubbed Brice from her Instagram. Social media detectives went wild. This was a woman who was not just playing around. She was done. At least that was the story we were being told. But if you know anything about reality TV, you know the narrative can turn on a dime. Elizabeth's breakup confessions were filmed for season 14, which aired in early 2024. But the timeline of the show and their real lives was overlapping. While viewers were watching the split play out on their screens, a major game changer was already in motion off screen. They were expecting a baby together. The pregnancy bombshell threw everything into a tailspin. The breakup had been painful, but having a child together was the tie that bound them. Suddenly separated and no longer living together turned into trying to fix things for the sake of their daughter. Elizabeth and Brice welcomed Layton Drew Bolden in November 2023. Becoming parents changed the equation. Where there had been a mediocre relationship, there was now a family, a shared responsibility, and a new hope. This set the stage for what we all expected next. In May 2025, Brice got down on one knee in Pensacola Beach, Florida, with their daughter Layton present. It was a perfect, sun-drenched proposal. In November 2025, just days after Layton's 2nd birthday, Elizabeth and Brice tied the knot in the field of the Johnston family home. They told People magazine that the ceremony symbolized togetherness at the place where it all started. 80 of their closest friends and family gathered to watch them say, "I do." Elizabeth walked down the aisle to a cover of Can't Help Falling in Love. Their first dance was to Teddy Swim's cover of You're Still the One. It was the reality TV redemption arc. It was the kind of story that makes us believe in second chances. Elizabeth had wanted the kind of marriage her parents, Amber and Trent, had. A marriage with spark, with effort, with love that doesn't fade. And in that moment, in that field, it looked like she had found it. But the title of this video isn't Elizabeth Johnston's wedding recap. It's about a divorce. It's about the official announcement. So let's get down to what's being reported and what's being rumored. And this is where the waters get murky, which is often where reality TV drama thrives. Currently, there is no formal, widely circulated official statement from Elizabeth or Brice on their social media channels that we can 100% confirm said we are getting divorced. However, there is a lot of evidence and chatter that suggests things are not as perfect as they appeared in November. And we cannot invent facts, and we have to look at what is in front of us. So what exactly are fans seeing that's making them sound the alarm? Let's break it down piece by piece. This is where the details of their story get tricky and, frankly, a little suspicious. The drama that has surrounded Elizabeth and Brice isn't just about a current split. It's about a timeline of events that never quite added up. Here's where we get a little reality scoop investigative. The pregnancy announcement was a huge deal, but it caused confusion. Fans questioned how the couple could be so broken up on the show, yet have a baby on the way. This confusion about the baby timeline has been a sticking point. As some outlets pointed out, the timeline of the breakup on the show and the pregnancy announcement didn't match up. While the show was depicting a fractured relationship, the reality was that they were expecting a child. And here's the fact. According to People magazine, they confirmed their pregnancy in September 2023. Their daughter Layton was born in November 2023. The breakup we saw on the show was being filmed around the same time. So whether the split happened before or after the pregnancy announcement, the point is they found their way back together. They got engaged, they got married. But again, we have to ask the question, did a baby in a beautiful wedding ceremony really fix the deep-seated issues that Elizabeth herself admitted to on national television? Or were they just putting a Band-Aid on a wound that was still very much open? This question about whether their issues were truly resolved is key, because it goes back to who Elizabeth Johnston is. She's a woman who knows exactly what she wants. She's outspoken, she's driven, and she has very specific expectations, especially when it comes to relationships. Think back to her own words. She grew up watching Trent and Amber. They've been married for over 25 years. Sure, they have their arguments and they have their struggles, but they work at it. They put in the effort to keep the romance alive, and Elizabeth wants that. She said she wants a spark. She wants to feel loved. She wants a partner who isn't just okay with being in a mediocre relationship. That is a high bar. And let's be honest, Brice has always seemed like a nice, quiet guy. On the show, he's often portrayed as the laid-back, easygoing boyfriend. But is he the passionate guy who fights to keep the flame burning? Elizabeth's own words from the season 14 breakup revealed the tension. She said she tried everything to keep the relationship alive, and she was exhausted. She said she felt like she wasn't loved. These are huge red flags that don't just disappear because you put a ring on it. If anything, marriage tends to amplify existing problems rather than erase them. Adding to the pressure of a potentially fragile relationship is the reality of parenthood. Being a parent is hard, period. It takes a toll on even the strongest relationships. When you become a parent, your priorities shift. You have less time for each other, you're exhausted, you're sleep deprived, and all of a sudden, the spark becomes a lot harder to maintain. For Elizabeth and Brice, they had a baby, and then they got married. They didn't have years of being a married couple before starting a family. They had a child first, and then they decided to make it official. That's a lot of pressure on a young couple. And let's not forget that Layton was born in November 2023. That means she was about 2 years old when they got married. That's right in the thick of the toddler years, the terrible twos, the tantrums, the constant need for attention. Add a wedding, a TV show, and public scrutiny into the mix, and you have a recipe for stress that could crack even the strongest foundation. Now let's get into the speculation, because fans are the ones who started raising the red flags. The eagle-eyed viewers of Seven Little Johnstons have been watching Elizabeth and Brice's social media accounts like hawks. And what they're noticing is a pattern that looks all too familiar when reality TV relationships start to fall apart. First, there's the ring situation. Fans have pointed out that in recent photos, Elizabeth hasn't been wearing her wedding ring. Now, this is something that happens. Sometimes you take your ring off to cook, to sleep, to work out. But when you're a public figure and you stop wearing it consistently, people notice. And they talk. Secondly, there's the lack of posts together. If you scroll through Elizabeth's Instagram, you'll see plenty of pictures of her daughter, Leighton, and plenty of solo shots. But Brice, he's noticeably absent. Compare that to the months leading up to the wedding, when they were posting couple photos left and right. The contrast is stark. And third, there's the body language. In recent photos and videos, fans have said that Elizabeth and Brice look distant. They don't seem as connected. The smiles seem forced. The warmth seems gone. Now, again, these are just observations from fans. They're not proof of anything. But when you add them all together, they paint a picture that's hard to ignore. So, where does that leave us with the official announcement? The title of this video mentions an official divorce announcement, but as of right now, there is no verified statement from Elizabeth, Brice, or the Johnston family confirming a split. However, there are whispers that an announcement might be coming. Some gossip outlets have reported that the couple is taking time apart and that a formal separation announcement is being prepared. But again, these are rumors. They haven't been confirmed by any official source. It's important to remember that the Johnston family has always been relatively private about their personal drama. They share a lot on the show, but they also keep certain things close to the chest. When Elizabeth and Brice broke up the first time, we didn't hear about it immediately. It played out on the show months after it happened. So it's entirely possible that if they are splitting up, we won't hear about it from them directly until the next season of Seven Little Johnstons airs. That's the reality of reality TV. The drama is always on a delay. If Elizabeth and Brice do end up getting divorced, what would that mean for the Johnston family? First and foremost, it would be devastating for Elizabeth. She grew up dreaming of a marriage like her parents, a strong, lasting partnership. A divorce would feel like a failure to her. And for someone as ambitious and driven as Elizabeth, that would be a tough pill to swallow. It would also be complicated for the rest of the family. The Johnstons are incredibly close-knit. They live near each other, they spend holidays together, they're always in each other's lives. If Brice is no longer part of the picture, it changes the dynamic. And then there's Leighton. The most important person in all of this is their daughter. Co-parenting after a breakup is never easy, especially when you're in the public eye. Elizabeth and Brice would have to figure out how to raise their daughter together while living separately. That's a challenge for any couple, let alone one that's been through as much public scrutiny as they have. Another question on everyone's mind is, how are Trent and Amber handling this? If the rumors are true and Elizabeth's marriage is falling apart, you know Trent and Amber are devastated. They've always been supportive of their children, but they've also been honest. Trent in particular has never been shy about sharing his opinions on his kids' relationships. He's been protective of Elizabeth, and he's had moments where he's expressed concern about Brice. Remember when he said he didn't want Brice to mess up the relationship? That was a telling comment. If Elizabeth's marriage does end, Trent is going to be heartbroken for his daughter. And Amber, who has always been the more emotional of the two, is probably going to be a wreck. But here's the thing. They're also going to be there for Elizabeth. That's what the Johnstons do. They rally around each other. If there's a divorce, you can bet the whole family will be there to support Elizabeth and Leighton. Let's also consider what Brice would be walking away from. He's not just leaving Elizabeth, he's leaving the Johnston family. And for better or worse, that family comes with a lot of perks. The Johnstons are a TV family. They have a platform, they have a fan base, and they have a certain level of fame. Being part of that family has given Brice a lot of opportunities. He's been on TV. He's been in the spotlight. He's been part of something bigger than himself. If he and Elizabeth split, he loses all of that. He's no longer a cast member on 7 Little Johnstons. He's no longer part of the family dynamic. He becomes an outsider. And that's a hard fall. It's one thing to lose a relationship. It's another thing to lose an entire family and a community. That's a lot of pressure for someone to carry. This situation with Elizabeth and Brice is a reminder of something we've seen time and time again on reality TV. These relationships are put under a microscope. Every argument is filmed. Every disagreement is analyzed. Every moment of tension is amplified. And that takes a toll. It's no secret that reality TV couples have a higher rate of divorce than the general population. The pressure of being in the public eye, the constant scrutiny, the lack of privacy, it all adds up. And when you add a baby into the mix, the stress multiplies. Elizabeth and Brice had all of that working against them. They had a public breakup, a reconciliation, a baby, a wedding, and then the pressure of being a reality TV couple. That's a lot for anyone to handle. And sometimes, despite the best intentions, the marriage just doesn't survive. Now, here's a theory that some fans have thrown out there. Could this whole divorce rumor be a publicity stunt? Could Elizabeth and Brice be manufacturing drama to keep the show interesting? It's not entirely out of the question. Reality TV is a business and drama sells. But let's be real. Elizabeth Johnston doesn't strike us as someone who would fake a divorce for ratings. She's always been authentic. She's always been honest about her struggles, and she's always been fiercely protective of her family. Faking a divorce would hurt her family, hurt her daughter, and hurt her reputation. So we're leaning toward this being real, or at the very least, there's real trouble in paradise. The social media clues, the timeline issues, the history of problems, it all points to a relationship that's in serious trouble. So what's next for Elizabeth and Brice? If the divorce is real, we can expect a few things. First, Elizabeth is going to lean on her family. The Johnstons are her rock, and she's going to need them more than ever. Second, Brice is going to have to figure out his next move. He's a young guy, he's a dad, and he's going to have to rebuild his life. Third, we're going to see this play out on TV. 7 Little Johnstons is a documentary-style show, and they don't shy away from the hard stuff. If Elizabeth and Brice are divorcing, it's going to be on the show, and when it does air, it's going to be must-see TV. But more than anything, we hope Elizabeth finds happiness. She deserves it. She's a hard-working mom, a loyal daughter, and a strong woman. Whatever happens, she's going to be okay. Let's wrap this up with a reality check. We still don't have an official announcement from Elizabeth or Brice confirming a divorce. Everything we've talked about today is based on rumors, speculation, and fan observations. We've looked at the timeline, we've looked at the social media clues, and we've looked at the history of their relationship. And while the signs are concerning, we have to remember that we don't know the full story. At the end of the day, Elizabeth and Brice are human beings. They have a daughter together. They have a family. They have a life that we only see a small part of. If they're going through a difficult time, they deserve privacy and respect. And if a divorce is coming, we hope they handle it with grace and put their daughter first. That's the most important thing. That's all we have for you today on Reality Scoop. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Subscribe to Reality Scoop if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update on the Johnston family. And drop a comment below. What do you think is really going on with Elizabeth and Brice? Do you believe the divorce rumors, or do you think they're just going through a rough patch? We want to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.